The sky over Tharix 4 was a milky swirl of green and plum, casting a soft ultraviolet glow across the cragged cliffs and floating spires. Shafts of ionized wind danced between the jagged peaks, slicing through the air like invisible blades. Perched atop one such floating stone was Professor Velt, whose long limbs were folded neatly behind him. His translucent chest pulsed with measured excitement, eyes fixed on the horizon where the great sky beasts would soon emerge. "Today," Velt announced, his voice clicking in a high register, "you will prove yourselves worthy students of xenobiological capture and containment. The assignment: secure a live specimen of the Eltari Sky Beast, unharmed." A low murmur rustled through the class. There were 12 of them, all from different quadrants of the galaxy, glimmering furred beings, gelatinous thinkers, floating gas forms wrapped in containment suits. And one human. Shane Alder stood at the edge of the group, arms folded, trying his best not to look like he didn't belong. The thin air of Tharix 4 made his lungs ache. He'd already slipped twice on the slick moss that coated the platform. His translator chip buzzed softly in his ear, struggling to keep up with Velt's rapid-fire instructions. "You'll be working alone. No teams, no weapons. No off-world tech." Velt's eyes landed on Shane. "That includes you, Alder." "Got it," Shane said. "No tech. No problem." Velt's gaze lingered a beat longer than necessary, as if expecting the human to drop out right there, but Shane adjusted the strap of his pack and stared back, jaw tight. "Begin," Velt said. The class dispersed with surprising grace. One student, a gliding hexapod named Gorlies, leapt from the ledge and caught a thermal updraft, rising into the sky like a kite. Others vanished into the mist, trailing nets or organic lures. Shane stood alone for a moment, then turned and began the slow climb down the spire. The terrain was brutal. Every step was a negotiation with gravity. Shane's boots slipped on the bioluminescent lichen, and more than once he had to catch himself on razor-edged rocks. He muttered under his breath, "Sure, let's just toss the human onto a floating death planet." Great idea. At the base of the spire, he found a narrow path leading toward a cluster of rock arches. His tracker, a small, approved Tharix native device, blinked weakly, picking up sky beast movement above. He looked up. The beasts were already circling. Eltari Sky Beasts were massive, winged creatures, not unlike manta rays with long, prehensile tails. Their hides shimmered like oil on water, and their wings spanned almost 20 feet. Shane crouched behind a large boulder and watched them, heart pounding. One soared low, casting a shadow over the ground. It let out a deep, vibrating call that shook the rocks beneath him. He waited, then slowly reached into his pack. Back on the transport ship, Shane had noticed something odd. The Sky Beasts had followed the supply drones. Not attacked them, just followed. He'd asked the quartermaster what the drones were carrying, and the answer had been simple: nutrition packs. High protein, high fat, smelled like roasted nuts and smoked meat, so Shane had stolen 5. He unwrapped one now, the scent strong even in the thin air. He tore a strip off and held it up, letting the wind take the scent. Then he waited. Nothing happened. He stood up, waved the strip of food. "Come on, you big flappy weirdos. Dinner's ready." One of the Sky Beasts peeled off from the group above and spiraled downward. Shane's pulse jumped. He backed up slowly, tossing the food closer to the open clearing. The creature landed with a thud, wings folding in. Its eyes, 6 of them, blinked in a slow, almost curious rhythm. Shane crouched, held out the rest of the strip. "Easy now." The beast sniffed once, then again. It moved closer, tail coiling behind it. Shane tossed the rest of the strip. The creature devoured it in one snap of its ridged mouth. Shane grinned. "Well, I'll be damned." He fed it another. Then another. After the third, he gently reached out and touched the side of its head. The creature didn't flinch. He tapped his comm. "Alder to Velt. I've got a live specimen, calm, compliant, no injuries." There was a pause. Then Velt's voice filtered through, tight with disbelief. "Repeat that." "I said I've got a sky beast. It's just hanging out, eating snacks. You want pictures?" Velt didn't answer. Shane looked up. Several other students were now visible in the sky, one of them ensnared in a net that had backfired, another retreating from a very angry-looking juvenile sky beast. Gorlies was tumbling through the air, wings torn. Shane shook his head. Y'all really brought nets to a snack fight. For the next hour, Shane stayed with the beast, feeding it in slow increments. He noted its behavior, posture, reactions to different protein ratios. The creature even let him stroke its wings, which felt like soft kelp. Then another beast landed nearby. Shane froze. The new one was larger, with a scar across its body. It growled low but didn't attack. Instead, it sniffed the air. Shane tossed a pack toward it. It sniffed, then ate. Okay, Shane said. One's a fluke. Two's a pattern. By the time the sun dipped, Shane had 3 sky beasts around him, all lounging like overf dogs. He sat cross-legged, scribbling notes into his pad. Velt arrived by hover platform, his body tense. He floated down, eyes scanning the scene there. Not restrained, he said. Nope, Shane said. They don't need to be. You used food. Is that a crime? Velt didn't answer. He moved closer, watching the beasts carefully. One of them nuzzled Shane's shoulder, then rolled onto its side. Velt scanned the area. You've done what none of my students have accomplished in 9 years. Shane looked up. Is that a compliment, or are you about to expel me? Velt turned away. Return to camp immediately. Shane stood slowly. His legs were stiff and his shoulders ached. He gave one last pat to the beast that had curled up beside him. Don't worry, buddy. I'll bring more snacks tomorrow. Back at camp, the atmosphere was tense. Gorley's had a fractured wing. Another student was in med bay, unconscious from an energy backlash. Shane walked in, dirt-smeared and exhausted. No one spoke. Later that night, Velt summoned him privately. You violated the spirit of the assignment, Velt said. I followed the rules. No weapons, no off-world tech. I used what I had on hand. You used food as a tool of manipulation. Shane leaned on the table. Isn't that what traps are? Just less honest, Velt stared at him. You will document your method, every detail, and you will repeat the experiment under observation. Shane nodded. Fine. But I'll need more snacks. The next day, Shane was flown to a different ridge. This time, he was accompanied by 2 observers, one from the academy, the other a field xenobiologist named Kexel. Shane didn't speak much. He just unpacked his food, waited, and let the scent do the work. Within 30 minutes, a sky beast landed, then a second. Kexel whispered, fascinating. They're responding not just to scent, but to tone, your posture. Your heartbeat. You're saying I'm imprinting? Possibly. By the end of the week, Shane had documented interactions with 7 individual beasts. Each one responded positively to the food, and none showed aggression. His report ran over 80 pages, filled with behavioral data, chemical analyses of the food, and his own observations. Velt read every word. He approached Shane at the edge of the ridge one morning. I misjudged you. Shane didn't look up. That's a first. You think humor protects you. But your instincts are adaptive. Is that your way of saying I passed? You exceeded expectations. I would like you to stay, assist with further research. Shane exhaled. I'll stay on one condition. What is it? I get to name the first beast. Velt hesitated. Very well. Shane turned back to the ridge, where the largest of the sky beasts floated lazily in the thermals. I think I'll call him Pancake. 3 days after Pancake let Shane scratch the underside of his wing flaps, the human collapsed during a behavioral tagging session. It wasn't dramatic, no gasping or theatrical flailing. He simply swayed on his feet while logging the sky beast's pulsed tail rhythms, then crumpled sideways like a dropped coat. Pancake rumbled, backed off, and folded his wings as if not to crowd him. The 2 Tharixian observers stood frozen, unsure whether human unconsciousness was a reversible condition or a final one. Kexel called it in. By the time Shane opened his eyes, he was inside the med bay, light too white and ceiling too low. Don't move yet, said a voice with a gelatinous undertone. Your blood pressure was non-existent for a full 30 seconds. Shane squinted. That sounds bad. You lost over 20% of your fluids. You've been operating in constant dehydration. Do humans not regulate? Usually we drink water. You didn't bring any. Shane blinked at the translucent medic hovering nearby. Didn't think I'd need to. I figured the mist was, moisture. It's ionized ammonia, the medic said. Shane closed his eyes again. Great, you also fractured a rib. What? 2 days ago, according to the scan, there's shallow calcification. You didn't report it. I thought it was a muscle cramp. Humans are statistically the worst species at distinguishing between life-threatening trauma and mild discomfort. We call it grit. Is that what you call neglect as well? Shane didn't answer. The medic adjusted the nutrient drip. You'll stay under observation for 40 hours. After that, you'll be re-evaluated for field clearance. Shane frowned. I've got 2 more beasts to tag. They'll wait. By the next morning cycle, word about Shane's collapse had spread through the research camp like an atmospheric leak. No one said anything directly, but the glances from other students had shifted. Not suspicious or mocking, more like wary curiosity, the kind reserved for unstable chemicals or ancient eggs being unsealed for the first time. Velt appeared at the doorway just past midday. He didn't enter. Just stood, his arms folded behind him. You should have reported the injury immediately. I didn't know it was an injury, Shane said. You knew it hurt. Everything hurts here. That's not an excuse. Shane sat up straighter. I didn't come here to be careful. I came here to learn. Then learn this. Your body is not exempt from consequence because your mind is determined. Shane looked away. I didn't want to lose progress. No one is impressed by self-destruction. There was a pause. Then Velt stepped inside. Your data on Pancake's wing sensitivity has been reviewed by the committee. It's being incorporated into the next edition of the behavioral manual. Shane blinked. Seriously, you're being cited. That's actually kind of amazing. You'll also be required to present your findings in the next planetary symposium. In person. Shane exhaled a little too hard. You're serious. You have 5 days to prepare. I still have a dangling Roman 4. You'll use the time wisely then. 3 days later, Shane stepped into the prep dome with a stiff gait and a thick stack of notes under his arm. The symposium hadn't started yet, but the panel of evaluators was already seated along a curved diatronic ridge, their forms reflecting the full spectrum of intelligent biology. Most of them had never seen a human in person. The room was quiet as he approached the central podium. Quiet in that way you only get when a few dozen highly educated life forms think they're about to be underwhelmed. Shane looked down at his notes, then didn't open them. So, he began, I didn't really expect to be standing here today. Mostly because 3 days ago, I passed out on a rock with a wild animal sniffing my hair. Someone in the back made a noise that might have been a laugh or a cough. I'm not a xenobiologist. I worked maintenance on an orbital station, but I've been around animals my whole life, mostly Earth ones. Dogs, goats, the occasional emotionally dependent chicken, and one thing I've learned, you don't get trust with force, you get it by not being a threat, and if you're lucky, by offering snacks. The silence in the room sharpened. I didn't invent anything new, I just paid attention. The Sky Beasts weren't reacting to traps or drones. They were reacting to what they associated with a safe interaction. They saw the supply drones as non-threatening and rewarding. I copied that. That's all. One of the evaluators, a spindle-thin being with a lattice of bioluminescent stripes across its skin, raised a claw. Are you suggesting that instinctual trust can be externally conditioned in higher-order predators? Not permanently, but long enough to start a pattern. And once behavior's predictable, you can build from there. Another voice, gravelly and low-pitched, asked, what were the chemical ratios of the nutritional lures? Shane hesitated. I don't have a lab-certified breakdown. I just used what made my bunkmate gag. There was a ripple of confusion. It worked, Shane added. Repeatedly. The striped evaluator leaned forward. Would you be willing to undergo a controlled replication under observation? Shane nodded. Sure, but I want to bring Pancake more confusion. He's already patterned to me. We can test baseline response times with and without my presence. A low murmur swept through the room. The gravelly one gave a slow nod. Accepted. After the symposium, Shane found Velt waiting outside the dome, unreadable as ever. You improvised. You expected me to recite data. Everyone else did. Well, I'm not everyone else. No, Velt said. You're not. 2 nights later, back at the ridge where Pancake usually floated at dusk, Shane sat with his legs dangling over a ledge, a sealed nutrient bar in one hand and a jotted list of control variables in the other. Pancake hovered nearby, tail slowly curling and uncurling. You know, Shane said, you're a terrible judge of snacks. This stuff tastes like burnt rubber and despair. Pancake edged closer. Yeah, I know, you love it. He tossed the bar. Pancake caught it midair, then let out a low trill that vibrated the rocks. A faint rustle behind him made Shane glance back. Kexel was standing a few meters away, holding a small, spherical scanner. I didn't want to interrupt, Kexel said. I figured you'd show up eventually. I ran a test on the food you used. The protein bonds mimic a pheromone cluster found in the Sky Beasts' native algae. Shane blinked. So the stuff actually smells like their comfort food. Exactly. That's wild. It means your method wasn't just luck. Shane leaned back on his elbows. Guess that makes me a scientist. Kexel smiled with a ripple across his translucent jawline. You're something stranger than that. You're human. Shane grinned. We're full of surprises. Kexel nodded toward Pancake. You'll need to start conditioning the others soon. The elders want to see if your bond can be transferred. They want me to. Train more. They want you to teach others how. Shane glanced at the sky where another beast circled high above. I'm gonna need a bigger snack stash. Already requisitioned. As Kexel turned to leave, Shane called after him. Hey, thanks for not treating me like a fluke. Kexel paused. You're not a fluke. You're a symptom. Of what? Of change. By the end of the week, Shane had a new assignment: create a scalable protocol for non-invasive interaction with wild sky beasts. He was given a dome, 2 assistants, neither of whom had bones, and unrestricted access to the nutritional stores. His first task was to identify which components triggered the strongest approach behaviors. Pancake served as the control. The first assistant, a floating gas being named Drell, kept trying to catalog emotional fluctuations based on pupil dilation. Shane had to explain twice that human eyes didn't work that way. The second assistant, a fur-covered biped named Grullo, insisted on communicating using scent patches. Shane just handed him a whiteboard. By the third day, 3 new sky beasts had approached the ridge. By the fourth, one of them let Shane place a tracker on its back without recoiling. By the fifth, Pancake brought him a rock. A big one, set it down right in front of him, then hovered off. Shane stared at it. Drell floated over. Is that a gift? Shane tilted his head. I think I just got a rock in return for a protein bar. Grullo scratched something on his board. It translated as, Sky Beast economy established. Shane laughed. We've invented trade. He sat down next to the rock and pulled out another bar. The dome lights were dimmed to match the ambient sky, which was now a deep violet with floating specks of bioluminescent spores drifting like lazy snow. Grullo sat hunched over a table, tongue flicking against his whiteboard while Drell hovered silently above a console, his gas form swirling in shades of chartreuse. Shane dropped into the nearest seat and exhaled like someone twice his age. Grullo lifted his board. Your gait is uneven. Shane rolled up his pant leg. The slope gave out near the southern basin. Ripped a ligament, I think. Drell swirled darker. You didn't report it. Yeah, well, I was busy not getting crushed. Grullo erased his board. Your species appears to treat physical harm as mere inconvenience. That's not true, Shane said. We just have a high threshold for whining. You limped for 3 kilometers. Look, it's not bleeding, it's not broken, it's just angry. Drell hovered closer. You favor one side. Compensation will cause misalignment in your lower spinal segments. I'll sleep on my back. You already do, Drell replied. Shane frowned. How would you know that? Your sleeping cot emits pressure data. Grullo added a new note to his board. Human privacy threshold. Low. Shane grabbed a protein bar off the table and bit into it like it personally offended him. I came out here to study animals, not become a case study. You've become both, Drell said. Before Shane could respond, the dome's external sensor chimed. A slow, pulsing tone. He stood, favoring his good leg. That's the perimeter alert. Grullo already had the feed up. 3 sky beasts floated at the edge of the ridge, wings rippling in the breeze. One was unfamiliar, a smaller female with a half-torn dorsal fin. New girl, Shane said. She looks injured. Drell rotated to face him. You're not cleared for field activity. I'm not doing anything strenuous. Just delivering snacks. You can't stand properly. I can lean dramatically. Before either assistant could object again, Shane was already halfway out the door, a thermal pouch of rations stuffed under his arm. The air outside was thinner at this time, and the wind had that dry whip to it that made his eyes sting. The beasts waited near the ridge's edge, Pancake among them, hovering just slightly between the others like a mediator. Shane crouched slowly, keeping his balance through his good knee. He opened the pouch, pulled out a ration with extra fat content, and tossed it just shy of the unfamiliar beast's snout. She didn't lunge. She drifted forward cautiously, the membranes on her wings twitching with each beat. The torn fin was worse up close, ragged and pink around the edges, probably from a scrape with a cliff face. Shane didn't speak. He just unwrapped another bar and laid it gently on the ground, then backed up. The female beast landed. Her claws scraped rock, but her posture was low and slow. She ate. Pancake trilled softly. The others shifted back into the air, giving her space. "She's not aggressive," Shane said. "Just torn up." Drell's voice filtered in through the calm bead. "We're monitoring vitals." "Her pulse is elevated but stable. She let me get within 10 feet. Then proceed with extreme caution." Shane reached into his pack and pulled out a thermal compress. "Let's see if you'll let me fix you up." He tossed the compress gently, letting it roll to a stop beside her. She sniffed, then nudged it with her snout. The heat patch activated with a soft hiss, releasing a gentle warmth. She pressed her side to it. Grello's voice came through the calm line. "She understands pain relief. Or she just likes warm rocks," Shane said, but the beast didn't move. She stayed curled around the patch, eyes half-lidded. Shane sat down carefully, stretching his bad leg forward. "We're gonna call you Sliver, because you look like you fought a cliff and lost." Pancake drifted closer, his tail coiling thoughtfully. He let out a low thrum, almost like a hum. Back in the dome, Drell whispered. He's soothing her. "I didn't know they could do that." "They can't," Grello wrote. Until now, it was late when Shane finally returned inside, limping more than before. Grello handed him a chilled gel pack. He nodded thanks and pressed it to his ankle with a hiss. Drell was still watching the beast feed. "She hasn't left," Drell said. "Let her stay. She's safer here. You drew her in." "I shared a sandwich." "Your species diplomacy is food-based," Shane leaned back. "Yeah. You should see our weddings." The next morning, Sliver was still there. Pancake had curled beside her and the others drifted above like sentries. Grello logged the proximity data, noting that no hostile gestures had occurred despite massive resource sharing. By midday, Velt arrived. He didn't speak right away, just stood beside Shane on the ridge watching the Sky Beasts glide above the thermals. "She's wounded," Shane said, "but not scared." "I reviewed your recordings," Velt replied. "The interaction was both reckless and effective." Shane shrugged. "That's my brand. You're limping. And still outperformed half your class." Velt didn't argue. "I'd like to recommend a permanent observation site here," Shane continued. "Let them come to us. No nets, no stress, just food and distance." Velt tapped a claw against his arm. "You'll need to submit a proposal, detailed metrics, risk assessments." "I wrote one last night. You were limping. I can limp and type." Velt looked at the beasts. "They trust you. They trust safety. I'm just the snack guy." Velt paused. "That's not a bad legacy." That night, Shane sat outside the dome, leg elevated, a warm pouch in his lap. Sliver hovered nearby, her torn fin still healing. Pancake drifted above, occasionally spiraling down to nose at Shane's knee like a worried dog. Grello brought out a small heater and set it beside him. "You didn't have to," Grello wrote. "We rely on your ability to function." "That's the nicest way anyone's ever told me to keep my joints intact." Drell emerged next. "You're cleared for limited mobility. But we're requisitioning a support brace." "Fancy," Grello added. "It will match your boots." Shane leaned back against the dome's outer wall, watching the Sky Beasts float in slow arcs above. He closed his eyes. No alarms, no injuries, no panicked students tumbling through clouds. Just wind, stars, and a species that had stopped fleeing long enough to share a meal. The next morning, Sliver was gone. But in her place was a small, smooth stone shaped almost like a spiral. Shane picked it up, turned it over in his hand. Another trade, he smiled. "Fair enough."